Hello, everybody. I'm just gonna send the tweet out now before I get to the questions, which I have open on my phone. Just to be clear, I'm not gonna do all 119 questions that you all sent to me before I before I posted my Why I Left Islam video. Having seen that now, feel free to add more questions. I'm happy to screenshot and add on more because I feel like it would be a really interesting thing for me to do and continue doing as a series. Just sending the tweet now. I am live now on YouTube. Let me see if I can find a link so you guys can watch it at. I'm not going to be responding to any of the comments you post like in the actual feed because I don't find that beneficial. So do head over to Twitter and make sure you tag me because if you quote tweet me, I'm not going to see it. I only check my mentions. Let me just see if I can find the link and I'll post it. Share, copy link, paste. Okay. So it should go out now. Hopefully, the internet's being nice. But yeah, I wanted to answer your questions. I have a lot of them to go through, and some of you asked more than one. So this might be a really long stream. If you're here for that, great. If you're not, great. You can leave whenever you want. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll say that throughout. Um, but the first, I'm just gonna get right into it. The other videos might be different, but I'm just gonna do this by myself. Um, so the first question is from Tyler Preston 20, and his first question is, "What caused you to doubt your faith?" What caused me to doubt my faith was the fact that I was under the impression that I could not question destiny. And I don't like that because my life was pretty shit before I left family. Um, so yeah, I didn't want any. I didn't want a God setting my life for me and me to just accept it the way it is. Um, and a lot of people have come to me and have tried to say that God hasn't set your destiny in stone, he just knows. It's still bizarre to me that God knows everything I'm going to do and still wants to send me to hell. So it's, I don't like it. So there. The second question is, did your family disown you when you came out, or did they accept you for who you are? They disowned me. They completely disowned me. I'm not in any contact with any family member besides a select few whom they're not allowed to say anything about me or that they're still in contact with me. Um, so, so yeah. It's not great, but I'm dealing with it. I've definitely found a new family to spend time with and be happy with and just chill out with. Um, so, so it's okay. It's not the worst, but my family's reaction was to immediately disown me. They wanted nothing to do with me, and they've just erased me from the family tree. Um, what denomination of Islam were you a part of? The denomination of Islam that I was a part of was a Sunni denomination. The denomination would be Sunni, but the understanding of Islam that I had was a Salafi understanding. I did follow a madhab up until I was like 12 years old, but after that we adopted a more Salafi understanding of Islam and we continued that way in terms of my family. Next question is from Mike underscore Dixon NZ. Um, which parts of the Quran, if any, did you find the most troubling to reconcile with reality when you were a believer? And or hadith instead of a Quran verse. Now, I am not the most. Um, I'm not a scholar on Islam. I don't consider myself a scholar on Islam. But did I have doubts? Of course I did. I had doubts about specific things, but a lot of the time I would just say that, God knows best, and that was my answer to everything if I didn't understand it. In the Quran, there were a few things that I didn't understand. They're not coming to mind now, but I remember having doubts about them. And I'll be honest about saying that they don't come to mind anymore because, let's be real, I haven't looked at a Quran in like I want to say like 2 years. I haven't looked at one. It hasn't crossed my mind to look at one. So, hi guys. I can see your comments, but please don't ask me any questions while I'm answering questions. Um, but yeah, so because I haven't looked back at it, I can't think of things immediately. It would usually be to do with Allah, like choosing who His believers are and who to guide and who not to guide. Usually, those would be the things that I would not be the most comfortable with, and I would have doubts about. In terms of hadith, there are buckets of hadith that oh, don't worry about it, it's fine. There are buckets of hadith that I was just incompatible with, like with the age of Aisha, with the fact that if a virgin is silent, um, it's an agreement to marriage. Hi guys. Um, but yeah, it there were a lot of things that I could not reconcile with the hadith and the Quran. In terms of what caused the immediate doubt, it was qadr. I never understood it. I still don't really understand it, and I still don't get how God can know everything I'm gonna do and still be like, yeah, I'm making you to burn in hell. So, um, oh hi, you can get back to your work. This is all gonna be uploaded later, Casey Atheist. So don't worry about it. Um, Next question is, my understanding, and this is from Arkansas Hillbilly One. My understanding is you can't leave Islam. Is it a death? It is a death sentence. Are you afraid for your life, and especially since you are being so public about it? Um, I am currently not in fear of my life. Um, I live in the UK, which is relatively safe. I live in an area that is relatively safe. There's relatively old people and grassland, so I'm I'm perfectly safe. I don't feel under personal threat. No one has physically threatened me in public. I've definitely been threatened online, but not in public. Um, so no, I'm not in fear of my life at all in the UK. Uh, in terms of leaving Islam being a death penalty, um, it can be. It can definitely be a death penalty in some countries who are hyper Islamic or follow the Sharia law or things like that. Um, Next question: why Muslims protest too much when Muslims are killed by non-Muslims, but why Muslims remain calm when Muslims kill non-Muslims? I don't think they are calm when Muslims kill non-Muslims, because I was a Muslim. I know how I would react when these terror attacks would happen. Obviously, there are like dickheads in the world who, support terror attacks, and it's horrible. But in terms of how I have seen Muslims react to any kind of attacks, sometimes they're quite apologetic and say that those people don't represent Islam, and that's debatable. But in terms of Muslims reacting more severely when Muslims are killed, I don't know. We're taught that the Ummah is one body. Hi, Warhead. We're taught that the Ummah is, or the Muslim people are one body, kind of like how the Jews see themselves as one body or one uh, kind of, I don't know what it's called, an entity, that we're together, and if one part of us feels pain, then the whole Ummah should feel pain. And that's why most Muslims would react really severely if Muslims are attacked. In terms of when non Muslims are attacked, I've never seen, at least not in a work setting or in a public setting, a Muslim condoning that kind of violence. And I've always seen people saying that it has nothing to do with Islam. I wouldn't say that they downplay the attack, they definitely do. They do downplay the involvement of religion in the attack. I can agree to that. But they don't downplay the attack. And I've never seen that, not in my life. Um, but I have seen extremists who will praise the attack, which is awful and horrendous, and I hate that. And people like that need to stop. Next question: what tactics do they use to keep members in Islam? They being Muslims, I'm supposing. So I said this in one of the podcasts that I do on Outfold Podcast, and if you haven't seen that yet, you certainly should see it. Um, on the Outfold podcast, I had said that Muhammad closed all the stops. Once you enter into the religion of Islam, it's very difficult to just leave. It's very difficult to just be like, I don't want to do this anymore. Um, and there are a number of reasons for this. The first reason is that Islam likes to think that it knows everything. Or Muslims like to think that Islam is the answer to everything when it isn't. It clearly isn't. It's a religion and people should use it as a religion. And I am by no means saying that if you're a Muslim you should leave Islam just because I say so. Please leave Islam because you want to leave Islam, not because I'm giving you information. I make it a point in my videos not to cite evidence because I feel like it's important for you to do your own evidence and reconcile your own doubts and do what you want to do. And also, I do my videos so that I can normalize the experience of just being an ex-Muslim and not believing in something. Because believe it or not, people don't take kindly to it. People get disowned, people get threatened with death and violence, people actually do get killed and hurt and, scarred for life and traumatized. So that's my whole point of being here. But how does Islam keep you in Islam? Um, First of all, it makes you, if you don't understand something or you don't know something, you are made to say that, just God knows best. It doesn't matter that you don't know, you don't have to understand it. God knows best. That is your only answer. Um, in addition to that, Islam is a control system. Islam has a very clear hierarchy. We don't really live in an Islamic state right now. We don't really have one anymore, thank God. But in terms of the hierarchy as it would be today, so for example, your hierarchy would be God and then the messenger, and then, Islamic scholars, Islamic understandings, all of that stuff, like Islam. And then under that, it would be your parents. Hi, Nemo. Nice to see you. So it would be your parents, and you have to obey your parents. It's a sin in Islam, and a quite grave one at that, to disobey your parents. And the reason for it being so grave, and why I say it's so grave, is because the name of Allah and the worship of Allah is directly mentioned next to obeying your parents in many places in the Quran. So under like Allah, His Messenger, it's your parents, and for girls after they get married, it's your husband. So it's a very clear control system, and that's how Islam keeps you in Islam. Because if your parents, for example, say never talk to non-Muslims, it's not haram for you to not talk to ex-Muslims. So I'm not taking questions here. Please, if you got questions, ask me on my Twitter. Thank you though. But the reasons for that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So if your parent did tell you don't ever talk to non-Muslims, because it's not haram for you to not talk to non-Muslims, you have to obey them. Or if they say don't look at that video that's telling you about atheism, you're not allowed to look at that video. It is a sin in Islam to do that. Kind of, not really, but kind of. It's like a slavery of the mind. So yeah, I do think it's got to do with the hierarchy of control that keeps people in Islam. And then the sort of final barrier is the fact that you can't apostate. If you apostate, it's you get the death penalty. And now, it was one of the things I didn't really understand in Sharia law when I was studying it, because in the Sharia you have punishments for different things like adultery and for killing people and for raping people and whatever. You have all these different hudud or punishments for specific acts that people have witnessed and have testified against. Now, Muslims say that those acts are meant to be preventative, which Islam agrees with. That is what it's for. But also, that punishment happens in this life so that you don't get punished in the next life for that sin, right? So, if, for example, if Sister fucking Asia committed adultery, Asia being a hypothetical person, I'm sorry if your name is Asia, but Asia being a hypothetical person, if that person were to commit adultery and there were 4 witnesses and she was to be stoned, she would get stoned in the hope that she would not get the punishment for adultery in the hereafter, in the next life. With apostasy, you have left Islam. There is no punishment in there is a guaranteed punishment in the afterlife if you continue to be an apostate and if you die as an apostate. So it doesn't scream to me that this is some kind of like absolvement of sin. So it was one of the hudud that I didn't really understand. Also, there is. I'm gonna close this window. I don't know if it's causing a lot of noise. Also, there is a lot of speculation about whether or not apostates are actually punished. They are punished because soon after the Prophet died, there was a mass exodus out of Islam. Well, not really. There were just people who didn't want to pay zakah. And the Caliph who came after the Prophet Muhammad, who we are supposed to follow ardently, his name is Abu Bakr, and he killed an entire tribe because they refused to pay the zakah, or the Islamic like charity that people are supposed to pay in an Islamic state, or Muslims are. But yeah, he killed that entire nation because he deemed them to be apostates. So it's very clear from the stories of the companions, from like the teachings of the Prophet, that that is a rule that has been abided by and should be abided by in an Islamic state. Hi Rex, nice to see you. Next question, if I can get to it. This is from Robert Jones. How do Muslims explain away the incitement to kill the infidels whenever you find them, but claim Islam is a peaceful religion? Now, I will give you this. I will give you this, that verse in the Quran, hi Ravan, that verse in the Quran is in context with a war. There is a context to it. However, um, it's very clear from the way that Islam is spread historically that it wasn't just spread by people putting up dawah stalls in other countries. It was. Thank you, Rex. So yeah, it wasn't spread through people doing street dawah with their fucking Nike caps on and their thobes and their weird slang. It was a case of being spread through conquering and demanding that people become Muslims so that they're not killed. But that verse does have a context. It is the context of war, and to kill them wherever you find them in war. Now, I don't really like war. I think that war should be prevented as far as we can prevent it. I'm a realist. I know that in all circumstances it cannot be prevented. But I do believe in preventing war as much as possible. And the fact that instead of, like, there are narrations in the Hadith, for example, that after the Battle of Badr, or maybe Uhud, I can't remember, so don't cite me on that. It's one of the battles, one of the two battles. After the battles, they had captured prisoners, and Umar, who was a companion of the Prophet and the second caliph after he died, he demanded that the prisoners just be executed by their Muslim family members. So if a prisoner, for example, if there was a Muslim man and his father was a non-Muslim and he was a prisoner, Umar demanded that son kill his father. That was the way that he had demanded that to be done. But the Prophet decided to let them go and get ransom for them. And later on, I think it was the next day, he got a revelation from Gabriel or whatever. And Gabriel had told him that Umar was right, that they should have killed those prisoners. Now, that doesn't strike me as the most peaceful thing to do. Muhammad definitely did the more peaceful thing. And I'm not saying he's a peaceful person, I'm just saying that he did the more peaceful thing of that time. So there is that harshness in the Quran that still exists. And those verses hold more weight because they were, sorry. Hi, Charlie. I'm well. I hope you're well too. So there was that. Sorry, yeah. I'm getting confused because there's so many comments. Should I not reply to the comments? Nobody's saying anything, so I'm taking that as I should reply to the comments. But what I wanted to say is that if someone. Sorry, the verses that were. Yeah, I'll not reply to the comments then. I'll stop that. Thank you. So verses that are revealed in the Medinite period, or the period after Muhammad Muhammad had migrated to Medina, those verses hold more weight than the verses that were revealed in Mecca. And in Mecca, the verses that were revealed then were much more peaceful because it was all about just spreading the message. There was no violence, needed. There wasn't a huge load of Muslims. There was about 40 of them. But after they moved to Medina and those verses started coming out, inciting them to fight the disbelievers, those verses hold more weight because they were revealed later and they abrogate um, the verses that came before, and that's what's worrying. Um, so yeah. Next question. Sorry, I know I keep getting confused because I look at the comments. I'll try not to break the momentum. It's just I don't want to disrespect anybody. Um, Next question from Joe. Concerning the inferiority of women in such a religion, did you have an issue with that when you were a Muslim before? No, actually. I didn't have a problem with the inferiority of women because I was so scared of the punishment of hell. I just wanted to go to heaven after I die. And I also believed that it was the word of a divine creature. So I believed it was the word of God. I believed in a thing giving me revelation, and I had to abide by it. So the inferiority didn't bother me. I just wanted to obey. It did start bothering me after I lost my faith in God, because then why the fuck is everybody doing it? Why aren't people equal then? So yeah, like I try to do this on the podcast as well, where I'll understand where Muslims are coming from when they make their case, because I was like that. I was there. I had the same thoughts. I made the same arguments. I understand where you are coming from. I promise you. But it becomes problematic when people insist on oppressing other people. If you want to live it like that, you're okay with the inferiority. I know that's like a really condescending way of saying it, but if you're okay with following that guideline and being that way, then I have no problem with that. That is your choice. Um, that is your complete choice in choosing your way to live. I'm just saying that people shouldn't be forced into it. That's it. That's all I'm saying. This is from Tori, or the Victory Tori. She's great, by the way. You should totally follow her. As an ex-religious woman myself, one thing that I found hard to reconcile was that the Holy Book said what the Holy Book said about women and how God seemed to care enough about us. I'd like to know if this also happened to you while your brain was telling you not to be a Muslim. Um, no, not really, because I don't know. When I was really, really young, when I hadn't really accepted Islam, I was just sort of born into it and brought up into it. I always wanted to be a boy because boys could do everything, and they would not be told off like I would. But when I did accept Islam, I was put under the impression that women are a higher status, which is why they need to be protected. You wear the hijab so that no one looks at you and no one takes advantage of you, and everyone knows to respect you. Um, so it didn't bother me after I accepted that. And also hadith that say that you should respect your mother 3 times more than your father and stuff like that. Those are nice. They're definitely nice, and I enjoy those the little moments of happy women are great moments in Islam. But it it didn't bother me, and it surprises me till now that it didn't bother me, because I was willing to accept it as a word of God, or as a word of God's messenger. While I was leaving, like while I was in my doubt phase for about a year, I definitely had more problems with it, but my whole thing was, if I find God in this year, it won't bother me anymore. God was my obstacle, so yeah, that's how it went down in my mind. Um, Next question. What made you realize, in terms of leaving Islam, from God Here 3? Um, what made me realize was just that God isn't there. I had a falling out with God. I didn't I didn't like him. If he exists, I don't really give a fuck. because he's not a fair God. He's not as merciful as he claims to be at the beginning of every single chapter in the Quran. He's not as forgiving as that, because if he was that forgiving, he wouldn't base all his judgment on who worships him. He would base it on who was good. Um, so yeah, that is my problem. That is my ultimate problem with God. Um, Next question from Fatale Flem. Great username. Or Tired Sparrow, which is just their Twitter name. Did you feel oppressed by the modesty narrative? Nope, I didn't. And then he made a comment underneath that saying, modesty controls are reserved for women in Islam, Catholicism, and Christianity and other religions. I wonder if you felt its effect. So, modesty I always deemed to be a good thing. I still deem it to be a good thing. It's not, but modesty doesn't just apply to your outward appearance, which I think Muslims disproportionately focus on. Modesty culture and like shame culture more so, it's very dangerous because no one can be no one can be unless they meet the standard that you want them to meet. You're telling them exactly how to be, where to be, who to be with, and I don't like it. um, it didn't bother me while I was a Muslim because I thought that was just the status given to us. And that argument doesn't come out of nowhere either, because the people at the time of the Prophet would wear their hijab so that they weren't confused with concubines who men would just rape. So it was to separate between free women and slave women. So that argument doesn't come out of nowhere. But the whole modesty thing with Christianity and Catholicism, it's a lot more lax, first of all. Second of all, I've heard the nun argument that nuns have to wear habits. You choose to be a nun. Um, it's, I don't know how people get that confused. You choose to be a nun. Um, Not every Christian Catholic woman is a nun. If you're a nun, you're a nun. You wear the habit. And I've also been told that not all nuns wear habits. It's just like a ceremonial thing. I don't know. I can't confirm that. I didn't study that religion, so you can correct me if you want to. But that's just what I've heard. Um, with Muslim women, if they want to take off the hijab, it's a whole struggle. You have to deal with the family, you have to deal with the community, you have to deal with random strangers being like, "Why isn't your hair covered?" I got like, not harassed, but I got questioned in an Uber one time. Like, I can't even take Ubers without being questioned about it, because I still carry my Muslim name and I have no intention of changing it. Um, so he'll be like, "Where is your name from?" And I'll be like, "Oh, I'm Bengali." And most of the time, they will also be Bengali. And they'll be like, "Oh, why aren't you wearing a hijab? Oh, why are you drinking? Oh, why this?" Like, it wouldn't be as questioned if I was a guy. If I was a man, it wouldn't be as questioned. But because I'm a girl, and they have this weird respect for me, and I do think it's a form of respect. I think it's just misguided. Um, they think that I shouldn't be doing these things when, it doesn't add up for me. Um, let's go to the next question. I think we need to get away from modesty for a little bit. So Joseph Winters, or XJW prisoner, said, "Be very careful. You do know they would kill you, and if you made a video, it will outrage them. Trust me. You may have to go into hiding. You'll be taunting Allah in their eyes if you made a video." I have openly taunted Allah. Okay, nothing has happened to me. Not by Allah, not by Muslims, not yet. Anyway, um, a lot of people, after I said I was going to make my Why I Left Islam video, said that I would be harassed or I should be careful. Um, I know how to take care of myself, first of all. I have a fair grasp on how to look after myself. So thank you for your concern. I know it's coming from a good place, but you don't have to worry about me. Um, and it bothers me. It bothers me that people take a religion so seriously, or me leaving a religion so seriously, or me saying that I left a religion so seriously. Even at work, like, I can't escape the fact that people are there who are Muslims who will constantly ask me why I left my religion, even though I've answered them, and they will try to convince me against that. Um, I can't escape it, and also I don't want to be dishonest. I want to be as honest as I can about the person I am. I don't want to be this dishonest person who just pretends to live a life they don't, because I did that for years while I had an abusive family, and I covered for them all the time. I think anybody and everybody should just be able to say where you come from, what you do, and how you live without being harassed. But yeah, I so far on my Why I Left Islam video, it's gotten over 1,000 views now, and I've only got like 11 thumbs down, so it's got a majority positive response. Like I've gotten more thumbs down on other videos that are also about Islam, but also didn't get as many views. So I'm actually quite surprised by how positive the response has been. So it's great. Thank you for that. So next comment. Separating from religions, do you believe that there's a God or a creator? Like we can't just come out of nowhere, right? This question is always on my mind, but religions? I think if there's a God, he would be better than sending messengers people just like us to tell us what to do and what's not. See, I kind of agree with that. Gone I've kind of flip flopped with the idea of God. For the most part, I'm kind of a de facto atheist. I'm more or less convinced that he's not there. Given that the world is pretty imperfect and that people are pretty imperfect, and I'm so sorry, he's made no clear signs of himself in this world. Like, if it's so easy for him to reveal himself before us, then do it. Do it already. I would never choose to be a deist. I feel like being a deist is just a very easy cop out. But also, I believe that if there is a concept of God, if there is a concept of God, he would just be like a painter. He would just make a version of the world. He would just create the universe, and then he would move on to creating some other stuff. He just has no care. He just did his little experiment, and then he's just moved on, like an artist. That's my view of what I think a god should be like. Obviously, it may not be like that, and I know that no one can truly know if there is a god until you die, and I guess until he judges you. But for the most part, I'm like 90% sure there's no god. 90% sure. And I don't adhere to a current religion. I still do my research. I still search my soul. I still think about it while I have nothing to do. But 90% sure there's no god. From Disobedient, why do you think Muslims keep saying they're full of humanity while they're so attached to their book, which is full of non-human acts? Because people want to be peaceful. For the most part, like 90% of the human race wants to live peacefully and just, do their work, come home to their family, and chill out in front of the TV. That's what most of the human race wants to do. That's why they say that. And I also think that majority Muslims don't know what's in their book. Even though they read it and they memorize it in a language that about 80% of them don't really know, because it's in Arabic, and most of the Muslim world is not Arab. Or even Arabs don't understand the Quran unless they are fully Fusha Arabs from Saudi Arabia. They don't really understand the Arabic that's in the Quran because it's such a specific type of Arabic. So I feel like a lot of Muslims don't understand that, and they're also fed the lines about how everything has a context. If there's any doubt about, these whole violent versus things, or like the slavery or the concubines or all of that stuff, they're always told that it's in a context. But to me, you can't put having a concubine into context or beating your wife into context. It's bad all over. Even if it's beating somebody with a toothbrush, like, why is that rule there if it's that arbitrary? God didn't have more important things to say to us. It just strikes me as weird. Next question. As for those people who are saying I'm agnostic, I consider agnostic and atheist to be the same thing, because agnosticism just means that you don't know something. And I've already said I don't know, but I more or less believe that God doesn't exist. Next question, also from Disobedient. Do you ever feel a little bit guilty about leaving Islam? This happens to me sometimes, but I keep telling myself I believe that there is a good God to that won't torture me for eternity, and if there is a merciless God, I'm good with being in hell rather than with him in heaven. I kind of agree with that rhetoric, yeah. If there is a God and he's going to punish me after I die, for not believing and living a good life regardless, that God doesn't deserve my worship. And I know a lot of Muslims will be there and say prayer isn't for God, it's for you. I don't, I don't. He doesn't deserve it. It's like he doesn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve it, in my opinion. If he's that cruel that he would just punish people for not believing. Do I feel guilty about leaving Islam? Sometimes, because me leaving Islam um, ended up with me, leaving behind a lot of family whom I personally took care of. So, in terms of like my siblings, I looked after them after my mother passed away, and I had to leave all of them because I was completely disowned. And when I say look after, I don't mean like babysit for a few hours. I raised them from when they were a baby because my younger sibling literally was like 11 months when my mother passed away. So, and she was ill, so I was looking after them throughout that time as well. So that's the only reason why I feel guilty about leaving Islam is because I had to leave my family. Um, but in terms of whether or not I feel bad about leaving the doctrine, not really. I am so much happier now than I've ever been in Islam. It is the most freeing experience to just live your life how you want to live it. Um, and I think the biggest lesson in my life that I've ever learned is that don't live with regrets. If you want to try something, try it. Because my mother passed away when she was 40. She dropped dead middle age. And I felt so bad because all people could tell her is to pray and be patient instead of just telling her, go and just fucking live your life because you only get one. You only get the one to truly enjoy your life before, whatever else happens after you die. That part is irrelevant to me because this is the only one that I can physically see counts. Um, so you know, I have no regrets for leaving a religion that restricted me from doing anything I wanted to do. So yeah, that's that's my take on that. Next question. The Quran is full of nonsense and inhumane commands, but if there is a good one, what is it? Um, it's probably the passages about patience. I think the Quran did teach me to be very, very patient, and it is definitely a skill that I'm quite proud of. I work in a lot of sorry. I work in a lot of stressful, like very emotionally demanding areas of work. So, oh, my voice is going. I might have to get a drink. Um, but yeah, it's probably the passages on patience that are the most helpful. Is there a way of pausing this? I don't think there is. Sorry. Um, I mean, I could end it there. I did go through a great deal of questions, and it's been over 30 minutes. So those of you who've watched it live, thank you for watching. I'm sorry that it ended like this. Thank you for saying hi and, hope I'm well. Thank you for that. I really, really appreciate it. It's just nice to have this community that just accepts you, even if they don't fully agree with you, and you all have really interesting ideas. Um, so thank you for that, and I will be signing off, and I'll do the next one. I don't know if I'll live stream the next one. I don't know if I like this format. I don't have a lot of control, but it's been interesting. I've enjoyed it, and I've liked the stream of comments that I probably shouldn't have responded to. But thank you for joining me, and for those of you who watch this while afterward, um, I hope that you liked it too, and have a great rest of your day or start of your day, depending on wherever you are in the world. I'll see you next